Thanks for joining us tonight. Eric Stiles is here to give us a preview of his presentation he'll be giving later this month. He went from NCO to CEO. So tell us how that went, Eric. How'd you do it?
Yeah, thanks. I look forward to sharing that journey from NCO to CEO with everyone that's able to attend. I'm sure parts of my story will resonate with some of you, and I hope at least I can leave some kind of helpful information or golden nugget, or maybe even inspiration for everyone that attends. So really, my story, my story began out in New York. That's where I was born and raised. And a few days after high school graduation, went into the Army and left for basic training. And that, was really how I embarked on the journey ahead. So in a couple weeks, I'll share a lot of my stories as a soldier. But before that, I'll dive into, who am I? Who am I right now? What is my why? Or even who is my why, right? So I think I would first define myself as a husband, and then a father, and then a veteran, and then a business owner. So I would really put it in that order. And so I'll share some stories about all four of those. In terms of my military background, I'll share stories about the years and the locations I served in, what MOS I was, and how that had an impact on me. A couple deployments post 9/11, how 9/11 impacted me. I was in when 9/11 happened. And then ultimately got injured on a second deployment, and I'll talk about the medical discharge process and how that had a lasting impact on me. And then, of course, the transition. So obviously, if you get medically discharged, no different than if you are ETSing from the military, you go through some kind of transition experience. And so I'm going to share with everyone what that experience was like for me. For me, it was about the Army Career Alumni Program, or the ACAP program. I believe it's got a different name these days. I'll talk about the VA disability process, how important, but not great experience that was. And job searching, how to build resumes, how to look for jobs, how to interview, just how to integrate back into civilian society, but more importantly, into the civilian workforce to provide for my family. So those experiences will be shared. And then, of course, my post-Army work history. Everything from jumping into a sales role, specifically a technology sales role right out of the Army, working for that company for a number of years. In fact, someone in the audience will have been a prior boss of mine, so that'll be fun. Some full circle there. But my journey from a salesman all the way up to an entrepreneur, there's a lot of things that happened in between, and so I look forward to talking about that. But specifically, ending with where I am today, which is a co-founder and CEO of YourSix. Who is YourSix? What do we do? What industry are we in? And what role do we play in that industry? I'll be jumping into those types of stories. Spoiler alert, we're in the physical security industry. And so I'll talk about what is the physical security industry all about? How big is that industry, and what type of opportunities exist for veterans in that industry? How does someone prepare for the physical security industry? And what skill sets are transferable from the military to the physical security industry? And then lastly, I'll talk about, related to the industry, I'll talk about how the industry of physical security is taking specific steps towards supporting the efforts of hiring veterans. And so I'll talk about some of those programs and how everyone in the room can tap into that. And then ultimately I'll come back to my journey towards to entrepreneurship, because there's just so much to talk about there. What led me to become an entrepreneur. That was not something that I had envisioned becoming, especially while I was serving in the Army. I had no idea what I was going to do post-Army, so it just kind of happened. Some of the mistakes that I made along the way, of which there are endless, and we all make them. The lessons I learned through those, not just the mistakes, but also the successes, although you always learn more from your mistakes. So the lessons learned both in business, but also about myself. There's a lot of questions that you're going to be asking about yourself as you go through the transition process. And I think it's important to talk about some of that. Another spoiler alert, I'll probably talk about the imposter syndrome. That's been weighing heavily on me in multiple steps in my journey, and just kind of navigating through that and realizing that you're not alone in feeling that way. It's very natural. So I'll talk about how the military prepared me for entrepreneurship without me even knowing. And there's so many, again, back to the lessons learned. In retrospect, if you look at everything and how it's played out, there's a lot of aha moments in my journey with how I was prepared to be not just a leader of soldiers, but a leader of a growing company, and people's livelihoods being, really under my responsibility. So I'll talk about other veteran entrepreneur communities that I get involved in, that I have found along the way, and that have become a huge part of my life. And again, not just as a business owner, but really a part of my life. So that's kind of an example, just quick highlight on some of the topics that I'll be discussing and sharing. And I certainly look forward to Q&A that comes from the group. I'm a pretty open book. I like to talk about this. I don't often get to, and so I'm super excited to address a room full of veterans, specifically transitioning veterans. And if there's any help that I can be to anyone, whether that's through networking or having a conversation on the side, I mean, I am more than happy to give all that I can to support everyone that's going to be there.
We appreciate that so much.
Yeah, and thank you. And with that, it's super thankful and honored to be asked to speak by the Eagle Group. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Good. How long ago did you start this company?
So YourSix was founded in late 2015.
Okay. And was there one thing that made you think, I'm going to do this, I know I can do this? What was the impetus for leaving the corporate world and launching out on your own?
Yeah, so that one former boss that I mentioned that will be in the audience, or hopefully two of them will be. But when I first got out of the Army and I started working for them, I entered into the telecom and IT world at a very interesting time. Mm-hmm. And I say that because it was going through, both of those industries were going through their own generational shift. From older technology to newer technology. And I got in there right at the, just at the right time to see the older technology and sell some of that. And then go through the entire transition process of why customers would buy the newer technology, the benefits of that, different types of revenue models and everything. And so I had a unique experience that was really just based on timing. And fast forward 10 years from 2005 when I started working in those industries to 2015 when I founded YourSix, there was I got introduced to this new industry of physical security, and what I saw in that industry was almost like a movie I had seen before. And it was another very large industry that was due for disruption. It was due for its own generational shift from old technology to new technology. And I felt like I had a leg up from a lot of the people that were living only in that industry, to kind of identify that shift was coming and to partner up with others who had just as much conviction in that shift as I did. And we felt like we saw it early enough that if we built a company like YourSix to build a solution offering that we felt was lacking in that industry, that it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. So we went all in.